Hi everyone, I am Vichumaya Chalkani, Assistant Professor of Physics from Government Degree College for Women, Nalgonda. In this video, I am going to discuss about X-ray diffraction. So the different diffraction methods, the Bragg's condition, the derivation of Bragg's condition, okay, and Lave's diffraction method. So we see it one by one. So X-rays diffraction. So the X-rays are discovered by Röntgen in 1895. These rays fall in between ultraviolet radiation and gamma radiation in electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, these are high energetic rays, and after the discovery of these rays, there was some ambiguity in nature of the X-rays, whether they are belong to whether they possess the particle nature or wave nature. Okay. So to resolve that ambiguity, in 1912, Max von Laue recognized that the wavelength of X-rays were of the order of interatomic spacing in crystals. Okay, the interatomic spacing generally is in the order of 1 angstrom. Similarly, the wavelength of X-rays is also in the order of 1 angstrom, so that uh, you got the idea that the diffraction effects are observable at these length scale. Okay, whenever we observe the diffraction pattern, when the spacing between the adjacent lines on a diffraction grating must be of the order of the wavelength of the light used. Under this condition, we observe diffraction. So here we are achieving so that condition. That means the X-rays are in the range of 1 angstrom. At the same time, the atomic spacing is in the order of 1 angstrom. So therefore, so we can get the diffraction pattern with crystal as three-dimensional grating. So, and it is difficult to design a grating plate with that much line spacing. So, 1 angstrom line spacing. It is difficult physically in manufacturing the grating. Okay, therefore, that problem is resolved by using the crystals as three-dimensional grating plates, gratings. Okay, so in that way, the nature of X-rays are studied, and the X-rays exhibit diffraction, and X-rays also exhibit uh, the polarization and interference phenomena. So because of these phenomena, so it is concluded that X-rays are waves. Okay, so we know that electromagnetic wave, X-rays also electromagnetic waves, and we know that the electromagnetic waves exhibit the dual nature, sometimes particle nature and sometimes wave nature. So in the similar way, X-rays also sometimes exhibit wave nature and sometimes exhibit particle nature also. Basically, these are waves. We treat them as waves because of the major effects of these phenomena. So in addition to the X-rays, in the diffraction pattern, beams of electrons and neutrons are used to study the structure of materials. Okay, a fine beam of electron or fine beam of neutrons are used in the diffraction studies, and using those beams, one is able to study the structure of materials. Electrons and neutrons are regarded as particles. So when we compare the three beams, X-ray beam, electron beam, and neutron beam, so we came to one idea that X-rays are waves. Then there is the question of what is the nature of electron beam and neutron beam. So obviously electrons and neutrons possess some mass and they follow the law of mechanics. So those beams or those electron and neutrons are regarded as particles. Okay. So we also know that the particles also exhibit wave nature. The particles are associated with matter waves. We study this concept in de Broglie matter waves. The particles also waves, act as waves. So therefore, so here we are treating these electron beams and neutron beams as waves, and these waves exhibit diffraction pattern. So in that way, we observe the diffraction of electron beams and neutron beams in the diffraction by using three-dimensional grating, crystal grating. So because of shorter wavelengths of X-rays, they are scattered by adjacent atoms in crystals, which can interfere and give rise to diffraction effects. Okay, as the wavelength of X-rays is smaller, and they can be scattered by adjacent atoms in the crystal or even in the unit cell. So the interference of scattered X-rays occur and they give rise to diffraction effects. That means diffraction maximum and minimum. Okay. Now we see a plane lattice, or we are taking the lattice, the array of lattice. Now we are considering, so in plane, the array of lattice forms lines. If we consider such planes in space, they form the lattice points form planes. So then we call those planes as plane of lattice, okay, or lattice plane. So if we take these as lattice planes and whose Miller indices are HKL, so we are observing one horizontal planes here, and these are the lattice points on the plane. The Miller indices of the plane are HKL. So since these are parallel planes, the indices are same. So if we incident an X-ray on these planes, it get scatters by these lattice points. Here we are observing, we observe here. So the spacing between two adjacent planes is the interplanar spacing. We represent it with small d. So now we are going to see the incident X-ray beam and how does it scatter. So we observe now. So just like this. So the light rays comes and falls on the lattice points. They scatter radiation in all directions. Here we are seeing in only one direction, but it occurs in all directions. So, so there is some angle of incidence also, or we call it as glancing angle, and we observe the diffraction pattern. So, in particular angle only. So, corresponding to this interplanar spacing and wavelength for fixed wavelength and fixed interplanar spacing, we observe the diffraction pattern in particular angle only, in fixed angle only. So it is just like this. Now we see the diagram. So these were the incident X-rays fall on the plane lattice. So that means lattice planes, and they are scattered in this direction. So it was angle. So it was the glancing angle theta, and after reflection also the reflected ray is making angle, same angle, and this one, right? Okay, we see here. So, so these are the planes we are observing here. It is the plane, and it is the glancing angle of incident ray. It is the glancing angle of reflected ray, and here it is another ray. So it is the reflection from top plane, and it is from the adjacent plane below the top plane. So here also the reflection is occurred. Now we are seeing this. So here O dash A P, the path, the path of the X-ray, O dash A P and O E P dash are identical paths. That means the here P P dash are going, the light rays P P dash are going in same phase. Okay. So the wavefront is same. However, we are getting the plane wavefront here. Here we are getting the plane wavefront. So since these are reflected from the same plane, so but in case of the reflections from different planes, one light ray is fall on first plane, that is OE, and reflected along the direction EP dash, and the another light ray or X-ray fall on the second plane, that is O dash C. It is reflected along the direction C P double dash. Okay. Now E P dash and C P double dash, so are propagating along the same direction. So, but if we see the path differences, the path lengths of these rays, there is some path difference. Okay, so before EB, the those two rays, the wavefront is same, and after ED also the wavefront is same. So the phases of the light rays is same, but if we see the total path length, there is a path difference between these two rays be- before they reach ED. ED. So therefore, that path difference is this BC plus CD. It is the extra path traveled by the ray which is falling on second plane. So it is a path difference BC plus CD. So similarly, okay, here we have to calculate or identify the angles. So here I am drawing in drawing between the two planes, drawing a line between the two planes, first plane, top plane, and its bottom plane. So it is the interplanar distance D. Here also EC value is D. EC value is D. So we are observing this. So it is one plane and it is another plane. It is the mean distance. Okay. So then it is the normal 90 degrees. This is 90 degrees. So it is 90 degree, and we are observing one straight line O E D. OED is a straight line. So the angle on this straight line is 180 here. From here to here, it is 180. But so this angle is 90. This angle is 90. So out of 180, 90 is there, theta is there, and the remaining one is, so 90 minus theta. So that means okay, totally it is 2 pi. 1 pi is there. So pi plus theta is there. So it is pi minus theta. So this angle is pi minus theta. So then, sorry, pi. Totally it is pi, and this angle is theta, and it is pi by 2. So therefore it is pi by 2 minus theta. So in that way, so we are getting, so these angles as theta. And otherwise, so we can identify these angles as x, and we write all the for values. So I am writing here. I am taking, okay. So totally this angle is 180. So 180 I am writing here. The total angle should be 180. So, so here. So here we are seeing the plane normal. So if it is theta angle, since it is plane normal, so this remaining angle is 90 minus theta. So it is a vertical extended line. So, and these two are parallel lines. So this line and this line. So here the angle is 90 minus theta. Here also the angle is 90 minus theta. So it is one rectangular triangle. Triangle AEBC is a rectangular triangle. In rectangular triangle, so this angle is 90, and it is 90 minus theta. The sum of the three angles in a triangle should be 180. So therefore, to compensate this, so this angle is theta. So if we add, it is theta, and it is 90 minus theta. So and it is 90. If we add all these three, we get 180 degree. So in that way, this angle is theta again. So similarly, whenever we write, so this angle as 90 minus theta. So 90 minus theta. Similarly, we get another angle also as theta in this figure. So similarly, we get the same theta here. So in that way, we are seeing the angles are theta here. So it is one rectangular triangle. Okay, right? It is a rectangular triangle EBC, and similarly EDC also. So it is EC is hypotenuse. Its length is D. Then BC is opposite side to this theta, this triangle, and similarly CD is also opposite triangle, sorry, opposite side in this triangle EDC. So therefore BC is equal to hypotenuse into opposite side. Sorry, opposite side is equal to hypotenuse into sine theta. Similarly, CD is equal to hypotenuse into sine theta. So in that way, we get, it is d sine theta. BC value is d sine theta. From here to here, it is d sine theta. Similarly, this length is d sine theta. So BC is equal to d sine theta, and CD is equal to also to d sine theta. So by adding this, okay, we have to add to get the total path difference. So we do it in the next slide. And EB is parallel to incident wavefront, and ED is parallel to scattered wavefront. Okay, so according that we have drawn the normals. Okay, now we see the total path length. So the BC plus CD, the total path length, and which is difference as compared to the light rays reflected from first plane. So it is d sin theta and d sin theta, and it is 2d sin theta. So we observe the diffraction pattern or maximum when the path difference is equal to integral multiples of lambda. Here n is integer. So this is the Bragg condition. The condition for in-phase scattering by set of equidistant parallel planes is 2d sin theta is equal to n lambda. So this is Bragg's condition or Bragg's law. So from this law, we are going to see, in order to observe diffraction pattern, what should be the order of the wavelength of X-rays. So from this equation, we are writing the sin theta expression, that is n lambda by 2d. So, but we know that sin theta maximum value is 1 and the other values are less than 1. So therefore sin theta is less than or equal to 1. So therefore n lambda by 2d is less than or equal to 1. From this n lambda is less than or equal to 2d. So in case of first order diffraction, so the lambda should be less than or equal to 2d. That means the lambda should be lesser than the twice of the interatomic planing, interatomic interplanar distance of the planes. So from this it is clear that the wavelength of the X-rays is very small. So there are different diffraction methods. So in the above formula, so 2d sin theta is equal to n lambda. Here n is the order of the diffraction. So if n is equal to 1, we observe first order pattern. If n is equal to 2, we observe second order pattern. Except n, the remaining variables are d, theta, and lambda. So d is the interplanar spacing, theta is the glancing angle, lambda is the wavelength of X-rays used, are variables. So these are the variables. So depending upon fixing the coordinate one parameter, and there are different methods. So generally in structural analysis of materials, X-rays of known wavelength used. That means, so lambda is fixed here, and corresponding to that wavelength, so the diffraction patterns are observed corresponding to different planes in different directions. Okay, so in that way, the thetas are measured in experiments, and by substituting the known wavelength and the measured theta in Bragg's law, we can calculate the interplanar spacing. So in X-ray spectroscopy, single crystals with known D with known interplanar spacing are used. So here D is fixed, and lambda and theta are variables. So by using the single crystal with known interplanar spacing, so the diffraction is observed for different wavelengths in different directions. So the direction, the angle is measured in the experiments, and those theta values and known d value are substituted in Bragg's law, and we calculate the X-ray used. Okay, which X-ray we use. So it is a broad idea. Then there are three methods corresponding to these variables. So by fixing one variable, so one method. So Lave's technique. In Lave's technique, and theta is fixed and d and lambda interplanar spacing and X-rays wavelength varies. So that means theta is fixed means so the glancing angle is fixed and white radiation or polychromatic radiation X-ray is used, so which consists more wavelengths. So the diffraction is observed for corresponding days. Okay, for corresponding different wavelengths are corresponding to different interplanar spacings. That means a particular set of planes consist a particular interplanar spacing corresponding to those different planes. We observe the diffraction patterns of different wavelengths. So that is in case of Lave's technique, Lave's diffraction method. In rotating crystal method, lambda is fixed, wavelength of X-ray is fixed, and interplanar spacing and diffraction angles vary. Single crystal is used in the path of monochromatic X-ray. So since it is a monochromatic single wavelength and the single crystalline material is kept in the path of the monochromatic X-ray and the crystal is rotated. Whenever we rotate the crystal, the glancing angle changes. So corresponding to those angles, corresponding to the planes, so which are obeying the Bragg's law. For those planes only, we observe the diffraction pattern. So in that way, by measuring thetas and substituting in Bragg's law, we calculate the interplanar spacing. Next one is powder method. So here wavelength of X-ray is fixed. That means known wavelength is used, and here the interplanar spacings and glancing angles or diffraction angles varies. So in this method, the sample is taken in powder form and kept in the path of monochromatic rays, and the powder consists tiny crystals or small crystals, and they align or orient in different directions, produce diffraction pattern corresponding to different planes which obey the Bragg's law. Okay, it is the procedure in powder method. Here we are seeing the Lave method. So in Lave method, so we are taking one goniometer, and it is the crystal, and it is collimator with fine hole. So to get the fine X-ray beam, and these are the photographic films, and it is for collecting the reflected X-rays in forward direction, and this film is for collecting the reflected X-rays in backward direction. Okay, so we see how the X-ray come and scatter and fall on the photographic films with this still animation. So just like this, the light ray come in this direction and falls on the crystal and get scattered in different directions around 360 degrees. Okay, in all directions. We keep the photographic films in desired direction only. So, and the pattern is recorded on the photographic film. So just like this. So it is a single crystal and it is goniometer, it is collimator here. So we observe the Lave pattern, the regular arrangement of some a systematic pattern on the photographic film. So that developed film is called Lave pattern. Okay, so that that pattern, the systematic or symmetrical pattern we get. So that symmetrical pattern so tells us there is symmetry in the crystal. There is symmetry in the crystal. So Lave's method is mostly used to determine the crystal symmetry. So the symmetry of the pattern helps to determine the shape of the unit cell. So if we know the symmetry of the pattern, we can determine the shape of the unit cell, but not the structure of the cell. Symmetry of the Lave's pattern helps to orient the crystals for various solid state experiments. So this method is useful in the determination of imperfections or strains in the crystal. Whenever there are imperfections or strains in the crystal, so the Bragg the Lave pattern, the peaks are not bright. Okay, so the intensity peaks are streaked streaked pattern we observe. In- so generally we get Lave spots, bright spots. Instead of bright spots we observe streaks in pattern. So this streaking on Lave's photograph is called as astering. So in this way, we have seen the Lave's method in X-ray diffraction. Thank you very much for watching. In